All right, everybody. Welcome to the Smoke Pit Project. I'm your host, Sergeant T, and with me is a very special guest, Jeff Spicer. Would you like to introduce yourself to the audience?
Hi, my name is Jeff Spicer. I'm really no one special, just sure, typical everyday American. I got plenty of friends in the service and everything else, but I've never served myself, though.
Well, that's good. That's all right. I mean, we have a lot of veteran guests, but it's good to get other people in too because, like we discussed earlier, if you don't have both sides and everybody agrees with everything, there's not really much to discuss.
Yeah, great.
So, one of the big topics that's been flashing through the news a lot, and it's been pretty chaotic to the point where I barely follow it anymore because you just get tired of kind of hearing about it and seeing it plastered across, because it's one extreme or the other. I mean, what's your stance on that? I mean, what's your take on this whole gun rights and everybody wanting to enforce these, pass all these like really rigid gun laws? It's just.
It's always sort of tricky because I myself am not a gun owner, but I have lived with roommates who have had guns in the past, and they were really safe with them, and they kept them in a lockbox or anything like that. I think my opinion is I obviously believe in the right to bear arms. Sometimes I'm curious why certain firearms need like an AR-15. I did a little research and discovered that an AR-15 is actually a lightweight semi-automatic rifle, and therefore, firearm. It's referred to as an assault weapon. I'm kind of curious, if you need to protect your family, where you need an assault rifle for that sort of thing, for someone who breaks into your house. But, and also when I think about the right to bear arms and stuff like that, I think of the original Constitution was created, they didn't have such weapons. They had muskets and stuff like that. So I don't think they could have really guessed what would become of the firearms today and everything. And so I kind of believe that there shouldn't be a ban on weapons or anything like that, but maybe more strict background for certain things like the AR-15 or other such weapons like that.
That's a good point.
So when I did my research. Oh, sorry. Okay.
So yeah, I mean that's a really good point, and there's a lot of I feel like there's a lot of miscommunication and a lot of education that kind of needs to get out there because like you were talking about the AR-15. For some reason that one became like super popular. I mean it's probably one of the least powerful, I would say. It's not like it's a huge caliber and it's not a high rate of fire, but people hear AR-15 and they think about like the M4s and like the M16s they see in the movies in Hollywood.
I look at the AR-15 kind of I look at like marijuana, where it has a big hole, tail behind it. Oh my God, marijuana's killing your kids. AR-15s are killing. You're gonna murder all your kids. It's like not so much, but there's a big, whole conspiracy that goes along with it. So.
Yeah, media has a tendency to hype it up a lot, especially with like news outlets. It seems like.
Yeah, it's a good trigger topic. Much.
Yeah, I mean, back in the day, I really I don't know if it's social media or what, but when they wrote that in there, I don't think they were being specific. Like, I don't think there was like, oh, you can own a musket, but you can't own the super musket that, I mean, it's like.
Yeah.
There's
like a double barrel musket or something.
Yeah, and I can kind of see where people are coming from, where they're like, okay, there's a point where it's like, what would you use that for other than, major warfare campaigns, and it's.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, you might not need a tank, but,
I couldn't imagine going out and hunting deer with a couple of Uzis or anything like that.
Yeah, but really though, it wasn't about hunting deer when they enacted that. It was, it was all about making sure that the government didn't pull, what happens a lot overseas. You get somebody in there and all of a sudden he's a tyrant and tries to take over. It's what happened with Hitler.
They were probably still pretty jaded by what happened in England with,
Yeah.
with their mother country and everything like that. They're probably still pretty sore about that. So
Yeah, and then you, but I also see a little bit of the other side though, where people that are used to it, that grew up with things, it's not about so much as the practicality or what it's used for, but it's kind of like something you're comfortable with, and it's fun for you.
yeah,
It's like a hobby, and I think you'd find that with most of your veterans, at least today, where even in the civilian sector, where somebody really knows a lot about it, they're really educated about it, and they're safe about it, but they like to have fun with it. It's like, okay, you might not need a Lamborghini, but holy shit, wouldn't it be fun to take one down to the strip one day?
exactly. It's like scissors. A pair of scissors is not dangerous, but I know I've been using them for all my life. I'm not going to hand one to my 1-year-old son. Like, here you go. Put it down.
So I mean,
anything can be considered a weapon when it's used in the wrong way.
But where is that? Where's that middle line? Where's that happy medium where both sides are happy, but kind of a little bit of a compromise somewhere?
It's the kind of thing where people will just bring in a list of facts. Oh well, this many deaths. Like when I did my research, that 187,000 students have experienced a school shooting since Columbine. And I was like, man, that's 6 times more than the population of Gladstone, Missouri, where I live, or 74 times my graduating class. But I never, in all my years of going to public school, all 18 years, I never had a fear of someone, doing a shooting in all my school. I mean, I was friends with pretty much everybody back then, and I never was like, this could happen.
It makes me wonder what changed,
Yeah.
I mean, when I was...
I don't believe it was music or video games. I think it's just...
yeah, but it's
lack of parenting is kind of where I go with it. I'm like, you know what?
Right. I mean, I was born in like 76, man, and then I grew up mostly in the 80s and 90s, and it seemed a lot to me back then. I mean, I've been to schools where, guys were parking their trucks, you're 16, you get a driver's license, and, this and that, guys would have gun racks in their back of their truck, like, and, nobody was, like you said, nobody was afraid of, oh, we might get shot up today, I mean, granted.
Like, oh man, Tim might bring in his rifle and
blow
us all away before we call him a jackass or something like that.
Yeah, and I've been on both sides, because I've also been like around in the urban areas in Michigan and close to Detroit, where people were getting.
That's rough town right there, rough town.
Yeah, people were getting shot just walking down the street. I remember a big thing in the news. There was a little stretch of time where people were getting shot just for their sneakers, man. It was like.
Jeez.
So you're like.
Is that the Jordan era, pretty much?
Yeah, and you're like, what the fuck happened? It was back when Nike Airs were first making their big splash, and but it's like, how did we go from nobody really being worried about it, people being used to it, people seeing it all the time, what wasn't uncommon to see a gun rack in the back of somebody's cab. So where did it all go wrong? Where did all these mass shootings? I mean. Is there a possibility that these mass shootings have always been going on, but they just weren't publicized because we didn't have so much access to all of this media?
Yeah, exactly. Where it was like basically, we had the newspaper and television, kind of like back then, but now these days we have endless channels, and if anything happens, like immediately, let's say the shooting that occurred Parkland, stuff like that. Like as soon as I got on my Facebook, it was just. My whole Facebook feed was littered with, school shooting stuff. I'm like, something happened. Shooting here.
Yeah, and then the next thing you know...
Whereas back in the 90s and stuff like that, you just had to pretty much get it on your local news channel or...
Yeah, it used to be big news back in the day. You have a school shooting, everybody's like, oh, holy shit. Now when there's a shooting, they're like, oh, well, that's another one.
Like, this is number... I'm trying to think how many shootings I saw in 2019. There was something like, there was always one every week I read somewhere for a while. I was like, jeez.
Yeah, and then we went through a stretch where there were actual police, like there weren't hall monitors now, they were actual police, and you're like, holy fuck.
Armed guards.
Yeah, we've got police in, And I remember when there might be a policeman around, just kind of watching the school area, and everybody trusted him. You're afraid to talk to him. Now there's such a distrust for even police with guns, which I think is bullshit.
Yeah, I think all these shootings, stuff like that, like I have nothing against police force, and I have no problem with authority. I might have had, some fake one when I was in high school, because I'm a rebel, that whole high school mentality.
Oh yeah, everybody goes through.
Being like a punk rocker sort of thing where I was trying to be, but honestly, I never had any problems with any police. I mean, I was a middle class, white skinny kid. So, like, my biggest problem was, I got a D in one of my grades or my classes. That was my minor problems.
But and this is good. I like to get stuff out like this out there on the project because I think it would be hard not to think that somebody out there has something that a piece of information that they might be able to add to the puzzle.
Just put an idea in there and maybe investigate it.
Yeah, like I said, like what happened? All of a sudden, people could be trusted with the shit, and we're halfway responsible,
Yeah.
And then now it's like, every other day you pull up the news or your Facebook feed, and oh, there's a shooting, or oh, look at that mean cop, he shot that guy, and you're like, what's going on here? Is it the way kids are?
There's got to be breadcrumbs to the to the answer, but
you think so? That's kind of my question. You think it's because of the way people are raised now? Is it society? Is it the environment? Is it
I want to say, because I don't believe it's. I remember back in the Columbine incident, people were like, "Oh man, it's music, it's Marilyn Manson, all this stuff, it's video games, it's movies." Like, I listened to. I listened to hardcore and stuff like that. They didn't really promote shooting people, but I mean, I listened to a little bit of everything, and I was like, "Oh man, I want to hurt these people." In fact, I listened to a band called Anti-Flag.
Yeah.
And they're not really anti-America, but they're pretty much
anti-establishment.
And I still love my country.
Yeah.
I think it's differentiating the idea of what is going on in entertainment stuff and what is going on in the real world.
Yeah, I mean,
where we need to have the ability.
Yeah, a lot of the mainstream media's always had the what do you call it, the predisposition where they'll focus in on one thing and just turn it into straight shock media.
Ratings, like, hey, focus on this because this will get us people watching our show and stuff like that.
But because I don't know if you, I don't want to like call you out or date you, but I don't know, I really don't give a shit. But the remember when Kiss first came out, like when they were first hitting this, getting popular.
I first got into music because I'm 36. I was born in '83.
Yeah.
And Kiss is, in my mind, has always been around, but it's always just because by the time I got into music was like when I was around 15 or 16. Kiss had been out since the 80s or maybe even the 70s possibly.
Yeah,
I'm not sure the history of Kiss.
Well, I mean, they've been out since the 70s, but it wasn't until like the 80s when they really started getting a lot of coverage. And back then, that was big deal because they came out with the makeup and the platform shoes and the heavy metal and all the sexual innuendos. And a lot of
people hate them because I guess their acronym is Knights in Satan's Service was what Kiss stood for.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. And then all of a sudden, they're Satanists, evil, and then
I was looking at them like, oh, it's Kiss, that's cute.
Right.
That's pretty much what I feel like all adults are looking at now.
Yeah, so
Kiss has a long tongue, ew.
Yeah, so it kind of tells you that there's got to be at least a little desensitization over time about it. So I'm sure that's one factor.
It's like, it used to be hot.
Yeah, and then you got, when Judas Priest came out and that one kid committed suicide. Then it was all of a sudden, there's subliminal messages there's subliminal messages in the songs that that told him to kill himself. So then
play it backwards.
Yeah, and that's what they were doing. They had Rob Halford up in court, and they were playing these cassette tapes backwards to try and see if they could hear anything, and it was just a fucking shit show. And I
remember when Marilyn Manson first came out, there was a rumor he had taken ribs out of his body so he could suck his own penis on stage. And
Yeah.
when I remember seeing a video, they asked about it. He's like, "What?" He's like, "I don't do that." He's like, "My shows are edgy," but he's like, "I'm not gonna fillet myself on stage for in front of an audience." And I was like, "Yeah." I mean, I'm not a big Manson fan by any means, so like, that's where people take everything.
Yeah. Shit, I was listening to Marilyn Manson before they even were a thing. Like, I had demo tapes of Mr. 44, but yeah, it's just, it seems like if that was true or if that was actually proven to work, it seems like there'd be a line at the surgeon's office.
Yeah, exactly. I'm sure there'd be like an 18 and over show.
Yeah.
And stuff like along with, a lot of warnings.
But it's kind of what I kind of wonder if that's what kind of happens with the gun laws, like owning a rifle or owning
like,
different weapons.
I know a friend who knows a friend whose brother shot him with this, and I mean, a gun is a gun. A gun is made for the purpose of, I don't want to say harming or inflicting a wound.
Mm-hmm.
Whenever you stick it at. I mean, nobody points the gun at somebody and hugs them by pulling the trigger.
Yeah, it's not. But there's got to be. I mean, I'm kind of torn on it because just being around it most of my life, you kind of become, I'm not really affectionate towards, but you're drawn to it, And so, as somebody that's grown up and, even, had professions that were based around weapons, I would be so happy if one day it was like, oh, yeah, you don't have to have a whole lot to buy one, But at the same time, I mean, it's obvious. The minute you turn on a flat screen, ignorance is everywhere. And there's always some idiot or some jackass that's gonna do some shit and ruin it for every fucking buddy else, And I think that's a lot.
Hearing someone told me once, like, "Oh yeah, a pencil that's sharp enough is automatically a weapon." It's like, that's kind of true. Like in prison, I've never been to prison, but from what I've heard, when they take you into jail, they take all sharp objects, all objects of harm, and everything else out of your pockets, and they confiscate them.
Yeah. So shit. I mean, I don't know. I hope I'm not giving away too much, but I go and I see doctors at the VA and shit, right? And one day I was sitting up there, and I was having a really rough patch, man. Things were kind of dark, but they always ask you the same questions anytime you go in there. Do you plan on hurting yourself? And you're like, no, not myself. Yeah.
Like, no, just the person who pushed me up the edge.
Yeah, and you're like, oh, what do you mean? And then the next thing they'll ask you is, oh, do you have any access to weapons? And I was sitting in his office, and I was like, yeah, I'm counting about 8 of them right off the top of my head right now. And he's like, really, where? And I was like, right behind you. And he's like, what do you mean? And I'm like, right there on your fucking bookshelf. I was like, don't take much to roll up one of them books and beat the piss out of you with it, And
exactly.
He was like, oh.
That envelope opener right there, oh.
Yeah. And he was like, oh, noted, and I was like, wait. But it was just like, it just kind of speaks to anything can be a weapon. It depends on the person behind it. And do we need, is it practical to have tighter background checks, or would that ruin it for people that are sound enough to own a gun, but might have just had a few issues because, I mean, look at when you're going for a job. Some of them actually want to read your Facebook page because they're so curious to be up in your ass.
How healthy you are in mind.
Yeah, and if they, you know how it is. I don't think anybody in their life has gone through their whole life and not had a rough patch where they were pretty close to fucking snapping.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? So.
If you didn't, you did not live life.
Yes.
You lived in a bubble, pretty much.
So. I'm curious as to how you would do that and not screw over some poor guy out there that really has an affinity for firearms, but is never going to get to enjoy it again because they found something in his medical record or something in his police record that was from 20 years ago, you know.
The only thing I can really think of, and it wouldn't at all make sense to me, but at the same time it would just be kind of silly, is to have a psychiatric doctor review personally every individual. It's like, I want to buy a firearm. You know, why do you want to buy a firearm? You know, for hunting. Okay, well, let's see if you're of healthy mind, and, you know, grill them for, you know, a complete, you know, whole 8 hours.
Yeah.
Like that. Just, oh, yeah, this guy's okay. And even then, I mean, I've had situations where I'm totally on a level, but I've had times when I just flip out because I'm super young or gun anybody down, but
right.
I'll just have, you know, stressful situation.
Well, yeah, and I mean, I know gaggle fucks of veterans out there that have been diagnosed with you know, PTSD and, you know, just conditions and, you know, just shit that kind of happens, goes with the territory. But I know that I could trust them with shit, you know, the most powerful weapons on earth, and that they're not going to turn it and, you know, and go stupid on, you know. But we're all kind of, I think a lot of veterans right now are paranoid that a lot of the stuff that, you know, kind of happens to them over time is going to screw them in the end and make it so that they can't own a firearm. Because really, I mean, if they did ask you why you want one, what's wrong with saying self-defense?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it becomes you get a friend like, oh, if you want to go buy, you know, a 9mm pistol or something like that, tell them self-defense, and they'll sell it to you, and then it becomes this, you know, scripted thing where it's like, oh yeah, if you want a gun, do this, and then true crazies who, you know, want to shoot up their work or school or something like that, say, oh, why do you want this, you know, AR-15? Oh, self-defense. Okay.
Yeah, and I would just hate to see a world where people who have been trained on them, who've cut their teeth on them, and, you know, it's been part of their life, would get turned down when yet all these gangbangers and you know, little psycho fuckers that are going around shooting up neighborhoods and shit, you know, they're walking into Ace Hardware and walking out with, you know, brand new rifles, you know. But you know, if you've been diagnosed with something a little silly, man, oh fuck no, you can't have one of those, you know. That I just don't want to see the world go that way, you know, because I mean, it's already kind of that way as it is.
Yeah, it'd be like Jeff Gordon not being able to get a license because, you know, he did some stupid stuff. But here I am, a guy who works at a car dealership, and, you know, I'm fine, I don't have a history, but I'm not going to give you a license. I'll give you a license, but not give this professional driver one.
Yeah, right. So, there's definitely, I just kind of wish they would shit or get off the pot in a way, you know, because you know, that it's like that feeling of not knowing where something's going, you know, like you're like, that's the worst part.
And another problem is I feel like the NRA has such a hold on our government system too. Like, I'm not anti-NRA or anything like that, but they're so deep in the pockets of our politicians that, of course, like, you know, Trump's not going to say, oh, take away all guns, because that'll just pretty much damn his chances of being reelected.
Oh, dude.
Whereas
he would lose half of his base support.
Oh yeah, he would lose his ass in an instant.
Yeah, you know.
But at the same time, I remember hearing Obama was going to take guns away for 8 years, and as far as I know, I've been told it got harder to buy them, but at the same time, he didn't, you know, take the guns.
I gotta say it, man. You know, it's the Obama years were really rough on the military. You know, I mean, I'm talking to, like, about stuff I don't know. I'm like, oh yeah, it's like. Make it hard. I'm like, oh, the military. Yeah, I've never served. Oh no, I'm just saying the Obama years were really rough on the military. I mean, you know, I'm not trying to turn this into a big, you know, bash Obama episode, but I'm saying as far as the military went, anyway, it was pretty rough, even especially budget wise, and, you know, there was a lot of gray area, and we were all like, well, fuck, what are we supposed to do, you know? But anyway. That set aside, you know, that's kind of another. It's kind of related, man, because I mean, look at it. You've got one extreme, and then you've got the other again. There's no fucking in between.
Yeah,
it seems like.
Yang right there.
You know, you've either got fucking, you know, Rambo, or you've got the fucking Peter Rabbit. You know, it's like fucking. You know, can't we just have like an independent, you know, who isn't, oh, Republican or oh, Democrat, but fucking, hey, let's take fucking care of ourselves and get our shit together and get out of this
exactly.
fucking.
Let's get a good healthcare system going, and then so if you do get shot, you're taken care of, and then I think we need a good team. That's the problem. Is we're trying to rely on one person to fix it all. Oh, fix it all. Oh, Obama's gonna fix it all. It's like one person is not the answer. What we need is a good team of politicians.
Yeah. The Detroit Lions figured that shit out back in the Barry Sanders years, man. You know, as soon as he left the team, dude, they haven't won shit since. But
you see a new team. That's what we need.
So you think there's any hope of that shit clearing up, or does it seem to be getting worse? I've been kind of in and out of the loop.
I feel like I've always discovered in life that things get worse before they get better. Because I think we have to hit rock bottom before you kind of realize, oh man, I always felt like whenever I really screwed up in life is when I realized I need change, and then I approach, what's wrong with what let's tinker on in my head, what's going on, what's wrong, what am I doing wrong?
Yeah.
And I think we're kind of getting to that point. What are we doing wrong? And I don't think we really know. Sort of blaming on, oh, it's music and movies. Like, nah. So I think we're getting to the heart of it, but right now
there's still so many hands. Right now, there's so many hands in the pot. It's hard to keep track, and it seems like
exactly. And everybody's trying to get ahead, and therefore, industries like the NRA or anything like that, they don't want to sully their name because that'll affect their good nature. And
this has been such a it's been such an era of extremes and shock.
Oh, yeah.
It's just kind of sometimes it's a bit of a shock to us old timers, man. I'll tell you what, man. It's like, fuck, dude, you can't anybody leave shit alone for like one day, dude. But
the year, it's like reading president, cool, like a year. Don't be a dick and just kind of hang out, help brother out,
Yeah.
$1 can have $1.
But so it's I wonder where it's got to start. Where do we start as far as getting our shit together? Do we start with the government? Do we start with the public? Because I mean, honestly, there's a lot of dirty shit going on in our government and all that. Everybody knows that, and you know what? That's worldwide. That's not just us. But I think the public,
exactly.
I think the public and even the private person in the private sector needs to own up and take some fucking responsibility for their own shit too, because they do, there's a lot of shady bullshit going on out in the general public and state government too,
No, completely agree. I think we've been kind of raised where I'm not sure where it happened. All I know is my generation, but at some point people are like, oh man, it's not my fault. That is the baby boomers. That's their fault. And then the baby boomers are blaming the Generation X and everything like that. I'm just looking at it, I'm like, man, both y'all screwed it up.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying is that I guess you could say it feels like everybody's so busy pointing fingers at other people, in this day and age, and nobody's actually looking back at themselves and going, oh, well, yeah, I guess I did kind of fuck that away.
It's like it's hard to accept blame for your own self.
Yeah, but at the same time, some of the biggest.
I think internalization is the hardest part.
Mm-hmm. But at the same time, some of the best changes in my life were after I hit the wall at 180 miles an hour. Fucking.
Oh, exactly.
Like like you said, you hit that rock bottom, and all of a sudden, it's clear now. That's all right.
Yeah, it's like once you've had that collision, you kind of open your eyes.
Yeah.
It kind of makes you realize where you're going wrong, and it helps you to reevaluate your life and everything like that. And some people find God, other people find that alcohol was their trigger and everything like that. And I've seen both of those things to my friend's life. I've seen that happen, and it's all different for everybody too. There's not like a stencil for the human race.
Yeah, I think people get complacent, and as they get complacent and they start, getting this little bubble around themselves, and then and then all of a sudden something really happens in their life, and they're like, oh shit, maybe I didn't have all my shit together, you know. So then it's a big scramble and a big, you know, like it's a big change. It's just where most epic changes come from, I think. But
yeah, people tend to not think that, you know, the way they're going about things is wrong, or they tend to think, oh, you know, I'm doing right and everything against me is, you know, my enemy. It's like, you know what? It's kind of like in the Middle East right now. We're looking at them as the enemy, and really they're probably looking at us as the enemy, and it's just because we're both coming in with two different views of the same story.
Oh yeah, I mean, shit, we could do a whole another like shit, you know, project show on the Middle East, man.
That talk about, you know, this for 5 hours.
You want to talk about dirty shit and cesspool, fucking ooh.
And you know, it's like all I've seen of Iraq or Afghanistan was what CNN is showing me, or what I've seen in, you know, the newspapers and stuff like that. It's like, I don't know what it's really like, and I can't even fathom what it's like to be on that battlefield either. I mean, my brother was a Marine, and he did a couple tours in the Middle East, and it changed him as a person. I can't imagine. I mean, he owns guns, but, you know, I've never felt like he would be a threat with a firearm or anything like that. But
yeah.
I guess it takes one instance to change everything.
Yeah, I mean, I learned a lot of shit, you know, just about our own government, I guess you could say. And I remember quite a few deployments being there going, fuck are we doing here?
It's like, can I get a bed? You know, can I just go home?
Well, no, it's just like...
Again, in a couple weeks.
Yeah, well, it's just you start learning and you start reading history, you know, because you want to know a little bit about where you're at, or at least the history of where you're at and why the fuck you're there. And the more you start reading, you start uncovering shit about, you know, your own folks, and you're like, damn, we got some dirty shit too. You know?
It's like, man, I need to wash my drawers.
Yeah, it's like, I better not get my ass shot off over some fucking stupid backyard watershed deal that was made by fucking somebody in Congress, you know. But, you know, all that...
Fighting a battle that started before you were born, too. So.
Yeah. All that aside, though, the whole problem here back at the home front, it just feels like it's gotten so far out of hand with going extremely one way or extremely the other, you know. It's just...
Yeah, there's very little gray, it feels like, anymore. It's very black and white.
It's like the guy that can't just have a few beers and go home, you know. He's got to stay there and get so fucking trashed that, you know, he loses, you know, half his friends the next morning, you know.
Yeah. Then he drives home just inebriated and he's like, oh, I'm fine. Whatever.
But it's good to have. That's why it's good to have an opinion, like an outside perspective, you know, kind of like, you know.
Yeah, because
I might be, you know.
And it also teaches me things too, because honestly, I don't know anything about military service. I've never served in military, and so I get, you know, things from you or my friends who have done, you know, stints in the Marines or the Army or even the Navy. You got a cousin in the Navy, and I hear things. I'm like, yeah, I don't want to, you know, experience that. It sounds terrible. So. Yeah.
Well, what was it like growing up, you know, with a lot of family in the military? Did you have noticed things? I mean, did they appear different when they would come back from a deployment, or as the years went on? Did they change a lot?
The thing I realized the most is my brother was a Marine, and he came back, and I remember Jarhead came out, and I went to see that with him in theaters. And he was fine. He didn't show any disturbed behavior from anything like that. And I can tell from him watching it what it was like in boot camp. Like, it jarred up some probably feelings in him, I'm sure.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember watching the movie, what was it, Full Metal Jacket.
Yeah.
I remember watching that on VHS when it came out. And the scene where the private, whatever his name is, blows his head off on the toilet, and I'm like, that scene still is stuck in my head. I'm like, man, I can see that. And I mean, I didn't serve in the military, and that affected me. I can imagine the man or woman who has done time in boot camp and in service is like, I identify with that.
Yeah, I mean, there's you always have isolated incidences when you're in high pressure environments, I guess. I remember even in the Navy, when I was in the Navy, man, it wasn't unheard of, for a chief to walk into barracks, or a petty officer first class, to be doing a barracks check and find one of the sailors hanging in the bathroom, and I was like, wow,
Jeez.
that's fucked up, so, but like, I don't know, Jarhead was kind of a disappointment to me in a way. Um,
Oh, yeah.
just speaking from somebody that, has a lot of pride, and I'm sure everybody that serves has that pride, and then when they go to see a movie, they're wanting to see, justice done to to their branch or to their military. So, I don't
I
know.
think it's the kind of thing also in the world. Justice exists, but it's also I've got to have this imagination of Disney. Oh man, the bad guy loses and the good guy wins. That
Yeah.
happens every time. And then you get to realize you're like, that is not true at all.
Yeah, but like Full Metal Jacket, that was iconic. That movie is iconic among
Yeah.
God, I would say a large majority of the veteran population. Um, but well, as I said
I
though,
think about in the military before that, other than with Williams or Hello Vietnam. I'm trying to think.
one of my dad's favorite shows was actually a TV series called Tour of Duty and China Beach. There used to be a lot of military movies like that out, and series, that appeared nightly, and then they just kind of faded out over time, I guess. Like MASH was iconic.
Yeah, I feel like that's the point when America had a lot of pride in its soldiers, and not that they don't now, but I feel like we've been in this war. I mean, we've been in war since I can remember, since the Gulf, since I've been a kid.
Yeah.
And I feel like, yes, we still appreciate our soldiers, but, and maybe it's because also it's the whole millennial thing, and I don't know what it is, and they don't respect, those who give them the freedoms that they have to do such things. But
Well, here's my take, and
it seems like we have kind of a
yeah, and you made a lot of good points, and but I gotta say, we might be getting a little off topic here, but yeah, we're running a little long, but I just gotta say yes and no, because the shows back then were, there were a lot of shows that kind of did keep a lot of honor for the military. However, I wouldn't say we really supported the troops more back then, because my father being a Vietnam vet, I used to hear a lot of stories when he came home, and he was so
Vietnam vets I heard really.
My father was so bitter for the longest time, because when they came back, he said he would have been happy even if they didn't even have a reception, but to come back and have rotten fruit thrown at you, and people calling you,
Yes.
names, and spitting on you and calling you baby killer, and that had to have been tremendous back then. Like, what a hit to your psyche. You come back from you're actually fucking feeling pretty goddamn lucky that you came back and were able to get off the plane, and then all of a sudden,
I fought for you, and you're just gonna you're gonna piss on me.
yeah, and then to come back to that. So it's just still it's extremes. There's nobody that's willing to. It feels like it anyway. Some days that nobody's willing to just like, hey, if we work together and quit trying to point fingers and fuck each other over, maybe we can get shit done.
Yeah.
But it's good to have.
It's just pretty much a selfish group of people, perhaps.
But that's why I'm kind of liking this idea of getting a mix of veterans and non-veterans on the project here, because I think there's a lot of possibility to kind of educate each other, keep an open mind about it, and
Yeah, I agree. Only through conversations like that we get anywhere. Otherwise, we're just guessing what the other's thinking.
Well, your boots on ground. Your boots on ground here at home, right? And so
Yeah, exactly.
a lot of the guys that have been kind of in that little isolated pressure cooker in the military, they think they know what's going on back here on the home front on the ground, but No, I don't think we do fully, and we come we get out. We either get out of the military or we come back from a major rodeo, and we get hit with that system shock. That fuck, what the hell happened?
Yeah.
And then at the same time,
war, then come home, and you said come home to cheers, and you come home to another war.
Right, and at the same time, if we can keep that kind of communication open, right? The guys that are boots on ground overseas, when they come back, they can tell you, if you keep an open dialogue, they can educate you about all the shit that the media is getting wrong and that the news is just using to incite people and shit. You know what I mean? I think there's
just trying to gasoline on the fire, pretty much.
Yeah, I think that would be a good platform. This little project. I think that would be really awesome if that could happen. But and wrapping up, it's great to have you on the show, and I'd be happy to have you on again if you're willing.
Oh yeah. Anytime, just give me a call, I'd love to be on again.
All right. Well, awesome, brother. And that was today's wrap session of the Smoke Pit Project. And have a good day. We'll see you later.
Thank you very much.
Session of the Smoke Pit Project, and have a good day. We'll see you later.
Concentrated power of will. 5% pleasure, 50% pain, 100% reason to remember the name. He doesn't need his name up in lights, he just wants to be heard, whether it's the beat of the mic. He feels so unlike everybody else, alone, in spite of the fact that some people still think that they know him. But fuck him, he knows the code. It's not about salary, it's the beat of the mic. He feels so unlike everybody else, alone, in spite of the fact that some people still think that they know him. But fuck him, he knows the code. It's not about the salary, it's all about reality and making some noise, making a story, making sure his click stays up. That means when he puts it down, Tox picking it up.